Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. My name is Reed Broughton. I am the 2024 Vice Chair for the Chamber, and on behalf of the entire Board of Directors, I want to welcome you to our August Eggs and Issues on Marketing and Branding in the Digital Age. First, I want a special thank you to the sponsor of our today's program, Lewis Gale Montgomery. Can we give them a round of applause, please? And now I would like to introduce Savannah Dyer with Lewis Gale Montgomery.
Thank you. And we are grateful to be today's sponsor. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Savannah Dyer, the Director of Physician and Provider Relations with Lewis Gale Hospital Montgomery, just right down the road. So grateful for this opportunity, and we want to share with you some updates and growth expansion of our hospital today. All right, so this slide shows all the capabilities that we have at Lewis Gale. It looks like there's a little bit of an error on there, but we are licensed for 146 beds. Typically, our census runs anywhere from 70 to 100 folks within our hospital at any time. We have 19 ER beds, and then you can see the rest there, but we focus on cardiology, orthopedics, general surgery, GI, and ENT over at our facility. And then on the right-hand side, you will see a recent designation that we received. We are a magnet nursing facility, and so what that means is that we put in a lot of work over 4 years. We detail all of the requirements that are required by the team, and we submit scenarios and processes and things like that to receive this designation. Again, it's a 4-year process. So less than 10% of hospitals across the United States receive this designation, and less than 1% receive it 4 times. So we are incredibly proud of this achievement and wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. So the next thing that we have on the agenda today is to let you guys know that Dr. Stephen Baltic, a spine surgeon, has just recently joined our hospital. He is part of Ortho Virginia, and we are closely aligned with that group. He is bringing not only the new service line to our hospital, but also the Globus robotic technology. And so what that does is it allows for him to move the muscles aside rather than cutting through them. So the recovery process is much more efficient for our patients. We reduce the opioid use within our patients. And so this should be an excellent service to the hospital. Just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. And then our last slide is talking about our freestanding emergency room. So this will launch in mid-October. So it's an 11-bed facility. We will have CT and X-ray capabilities there, and it will be the same staff. So the staff from our emergency room will also float over to that emergency room, and then we will have a cohesive group of physicians covering both facilities as well. It is right off of exit 114. If you haven't seen where that is, it's right near Route 8 Donuts. It developed very quickly. So we have a couple of other infrastructure things left to do, but our plan is to open mid-October. Do you guys have any questions? All right. So I will be introducing today's moderator, who is Carolyn Kogan. She is a seasoned digital marketing strategist with a specialization in marketing media, social media marketing, I apologize. She teaches social media and content marketing at the Pamplin School of Business at Virginia Tech, where she provides students with real-world experience to create impactful marketing campaigns. Ms. Kogan holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the School of Visual Arts in New York and a Master's of Arts from the Academy of Architecture and Design in Prague. Ms. Kogan has over 20 years of experience within the realm of digital marketing, from strategy to design to production. She began her career by collaborating with designers and engineers in the Czech Republic and Germany to plan and produce video assets to grow their online presence. After returning to the United States, she became a digital marketing strategist, focusing on empowering small businesses by devising and implementing effective online marketing plans to build and support their brand. Please join me in welcoming Carolyn.
Let me just get the mic set up here. Okay. I turned it on? Okay, good. We're great. Is that too loud or? All right, we'll talk a little quieter. So thank you so much for the introduction, Savannah, and thank you for sponsoring this morning's breakfast. Those are all really exciting updates, and I'm also personally interested to learn more about that. And we're super lucky today because we have 4 experts here in digital marketing, and this is such a nebulous landscape. It's constantly changing, what it entails, what it incorporates, what advancements are going on. And so we're really in a special place this morning to be able to talk to them and go through the various aspects of digital marketing and some big questions that we're facing today. So I'm just going to have each one of them introduce themselves, what company they're with, and what their specialization is, what makes them unique in their role, and then we'll get started with some of our questions.
Well, many of you are already familiar with me. I'm Alan Waters, the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Chamber. I come to this land from a lot of experience with small business ownership and theater and film work, which is what drives my marketing passions and what I look to do.
Hello everyone, I'm Cara Baumann from Uncork-it. We're a full-service marketing, advertising, and PR agency that specializes in high-tech and emerging technologies, and also economic development marketing for high-tech communities like Blacksburg. I am the head of the strategy team, so I touch a lot of different parts.
Hey everybody, I'm Cameron May. I am the digital director for Wheeler Digital. We're based out of Roanoke. We are a full-service digital ad agency. We work with all sorts of industries, a lot of ones that are in this room today. I supervise and help execute with our team pretty much every campaign that goes through our building. And I would say if there's kind of one guiding compass that we always have for everything we do that you'll probably hear a lot and might get repetitive today is that we really believe that every campaign is as customized and unique as your business and your goals. So there's really no one size fits all. I'm really happy to be here.
Good morning. My name is Keith Brophy. I'm the founder of KeyBuzz Digital Marketing Consulting. I started a company that specializes in providing tailored services for small businesses here in Southwest Virginia. We always start off with trying to understand first and foremost what your goals are and what it is you're trying to accomplish, and then helping develop strategies to help you grow your business through leveraging the power of the internet. Some of the services we specialize in is search engine optimization, so getting you in front of more customers, do pay-per-click marketing, social media and content marketing, reputation management, which is an area that's often overlooked, as well as technical site optimization, and of course doing web building if you need it. But I would say one of the differentiators is my strength is focusing on organic optimization, which is taking your website and not making it prettier, but making it stronger and helping it get higher up in search rankings.
Thank you. So you see, we really covered all the different aspects of digital marketing here. So to begin with, because we've got a real...
Good morning!
Well, we're beginning the day. So because we've got such a wide range here of different types of businesses and with different marketing needs, we're going to start off with businesses that both are looking to begin a strategy and those who feel like they've plateaued in their strategy. So starting off with Cameron, you want to move the microphone maybe towards him just for now while we're working that tech. So for those that are just beginning their digital marketing journey, would you recommend them to prioritize specific platforms like SEO, the social media, email marketing, or do you think it should be a multi-channel approach?
Okay, so already I'm going to make good on my warning and say that there is not a one-size-fits-all
Right.
answer to that. I think my main advice there is that you really need to look at the research, look at the data, do the homework. Do the homework on which platforms make the most sense from a targeting perspective, with who you're trying to reach. Which platforms are going to have the best creative outlet, the best message for that demonstrates your product. Which one is going to fit within realistically what your budgetary constraints are, that sort of thing. I think what I would warn against, though, and what I do often see, is companies attempting to do every single platform at the beginning, not having the bandwidth, whether from just an execution perspective or a budget perspective, to do any of them really well. So I'm a big believer in finding the one or two that are of most value and really prioritizing those first, and then as you see success from that, growing and expanding out into others. We have almost 20 different ad platform technologies that we use, and those are just kind of the umbrella terms. It goes across thousands and thousands of different ad exchanges and private marketplaces. So there's an infinite number of places that you can be in the digital world. It's growing all the time. So I would say much more just find the ones that are going to be top priority for where your ideal users are, and focus on doing those very well, at least from a beginner perspective. Do you want me to go ahead and roll right into?
Yeah, and then also, like, if you feel like you've plateaued in your strategy, you've already had some experience, maybe some success, but now you want to reignite and kind of continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously that would, again, depend on which platforms you have already seen that success on. If you've gotten a lot of organic growth and whatnot from your social content, then a very obvious next step would be doing paid ads on Meta, or if you've been getting a lot of growth, if your video content does very well on Facebook and Instagram, then do you then start to prioritize other video platforms, whether that's doing OTT ads on streaming TVs, or do you need to venture into TikTok and brush up on your dance moves? It really all is going to kind of depend on always be nimble, see where you've seen success, and say, how can I push that a step further? So it would be find the platforms I think that are a natural extension or a natural next step to where you've seen before. But again, it's deeply unhelpful. It depends for me.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I'll take it next.
I would just say that as you are looking at some of these opportunities, also check into where you're able to cross-post and alleviate some of the additional pain of, I have to go here, and then I have to go here, and I have to go here. Knowing that as I say this, it may change. There are things that are out there that exist to help you do that, but Facebook, Meta, whatever we want to call it, it will limit the reach you can get when you're utilizing some of the outside tools versus using things inside of those apps. Now, like I said, now that I've said it, they'll probably change it because it shifts so frequently. But we use a tool called Constant Contact at the Chamber, and that helps alleviate needing to post separately to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I can loop it all together, and then it becomes a singular task for me, and that at least helps that reach. But I want to agree and harp on, do what you can well and do what you can consistent beyond trying to expand. Consistency's sake, to me, is probably the most important aspect of any posting strategy, simply over the fact that if you're not consistent, if someone goes and looks at your Instagram page and the last thing that was there was June of 2022, the first question is going to be, well, why? And then the second question often is going to be, I hope they're not closed. So it's better to have those things in existence and making sure you're keeping it consistent rather than necessarily going, I'm going to post this dance on TikTok and I'm going to stick with it, and then a month later you're out of dances.
Thank you. A term that I want everyone to get familiar with, and if you leave with one thing for me, I hope this is it. Entity search. All search, all activity now is viewed by Google as it's all one piece. It's all tied together. So which channel, which platform do you do? Yes, that's the answer. Right? We all look at our businesses as they're our babies, right? Imagine nobody wants to have a baby with a head, a torso, and one leg, right? You can't do things in pieces. So as you're looking at these things, recognize that they all need to tie in together. Your social needs to be driven to your website. Email marketing needs to be brought to landing pages. Paid search needs to have great content for it to work. All these things need to be done together. But with that said, they all should be allowed to develop as best that works for you and as makes sense for your place where you are in business, right? So don't look at social media as a one-off. It is part of your presence. That is where you will find some of your audience. Others will find you on Google. Others will find you in a visual ad. It's many different places. So think of it as all one piece, right? And then how you develop that will vary. As far as plateauing, most likely you haven't plateaued. It's go back and figure out what changed or why it stopped. Get familiar with your analytics and figure out what has been happening. Has my audience changed? Have I actually maxed out this particular search term? What can I do to refresh the content to get in front of more people, right? So just, things have moderately changed, but get familiar with your numbers to stop and go, why hasn't it growing? And then from there, you'll be able to figure out what your own next steps are, because you'll be able to understand why your audience has changed or where your next audience is going to be.
Well, I'll be brief because I think we've hit on most of the points I wanted to mention. I read somewhere that the sign of an expert is someone who always says it depends when you ask them a question. I think you're going to hear a lot of that from us today. One thing I'm actually firm on, though, is that I believe in multi-channel. Which channels is going to entirely depend on your particular business. But having more could be 2 channels. It's always better. We used to say it took 7 touches. People had to hear your message 7 times before they were ready to make a decision about your product or service. It's more than double that now. Which means one channel is not going to reach those people 15 times fast enough. And more channels means they're hearing that message from more places, and hearing it from 2 places is more powerful than hearing it from 1. So again, I totally agree that do it well, but have more than 1.
Perfect, thank you. So this kind of leads right into it because I think Keith was also mentioning, and Cameron was mentioning budget or what your resources are. So based on that, what practical advice can you offer small businesses on allocating resources effectively for digital marketing in particular? And are there any specific AI-driven tools or technologies that you recommend investing that would maximize your impact? So Keith, do you want to start off with that one?
Thank you. Question I get asked a lot is, how much should I spend? And the answer is always, how much you got, right? Which is part of the joy and yet the major headache of living in the digital spaces. It literally is a bottomless well of the more money you have, the more places we can find for it to spend. And the challenge comes down to what is your budget and what makes sense for you. Now, I've been having a lot of conversations with businesses lately, and there is still some anxiety and some concerns about looking ahead for what the economic condition is going to be like. So one of the things that I've, having gone through 3 different economic upturns, we'll call them, in which there was a lot of chaos. We'll say first and foremost, marketing is one of the first things that business owners always want to cut back on. And a fabulous study by, I had it written down just because I couldn't remember it, Ahrensburg Bass demonstrated that companies that cut back on their budgets actually, over the long term, lost up to 36% of their potential gross sales. So if we are looking into, or if your business is looking into some economic downturns, I would say your budget strategy should be aggressive. Put the channels into what works best for you, but what's going to get you in front of the customers that are most likely to convert with you, right? So if you don't have a very large social audience, don't leverage it there because they're most likely they don't know you and they're not going to convert with you. So part of where you should be looking at is where is it really working, and the strategy should generally be to double down and focus there, because most likely your competitors are going to be backing off. So you can be the loudest person in the room, and when all these ad spend potential are all based on who spends or who bids the most, if they're backing off, you can actually get it for cheaper than you can now. So look at that. But a lot of this, again, is going back in and looking at it starts with understanding your analytics, figuring out what is working, and assessing what is, and if you are putting budgeting into things that are not tied to analytics, figure out a way to measure it to see, is it going to work or not? Right? So when it comes down to that, my recommendation for budget spend is just keep reviewing what you've done in the past and where are the successes and reinvesting into that, because this is a long-term investment. This is not a 3-month campaign and we're going to get over it, because that's not how the digital works.
Does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, happy to. So, yeah, 100% agree on everything Keith said, especially on the importance, I think, of staying nimble, of seeing what's working in your analytics, seeing what's leading to conversions, and you know, just because maybe you had a platform that was really driving sales for you for a while, there can be no rhyme or reason where all of a sudden that platform will not be getting the same effect and another one will. And so I think that even though digital campaigns are, just as you said, a long-term thing, that doesn't mean that they aren't organic. They need to stay nimble. They need to evolve with the data, with the results you're seeing. And then I don't want to be too inside baseball, but part of our process, because I do think that there is always that kind of like, well, what's your budget? You know, question looming. The way that we do things at Wheeler is that we really look at the first priority assignment, so that if we have a nonprofit that says, well, the majority of our donations come from people that are in these cities and, you know, fall into this age range, and they typically give to other nonprofits that are about food shortages or whatever the case may be. We take the time to kind of drill down and say, these are the people we want to reach, and this is the area we want to reach them in. And then rather than kind of guess and rather than just sort of see how much money we can get out of you, what we like to do is look at that assignment, and we have a technology that looks back over the last 18 months, the last year and a half, and it looks across all the 1,400 different ad exchanges, the 500 marketplaces, whatnot that we're on, and by the platform that you're using, if you're using Facebook, you're using, doesn't matter, it gives us a monthly average of roughly how many people actually fit that targeting in that geography. And that way you can actually kind of break it down into a very simple math equation, because the most common mistakes people make budgeting-wise that I've seen is either they overspend because when they started marketing, someone told them, oh, you got to do AdWords and you got to spend at least 10 grand a month, when they could be getting the same results for half that cost. It all depends. Or they underspend. They set their geography as the entire state of Virginia, and they set a monthly budget of $100, and they wonder why their campaign didn't work. So just don't skip the homework and the hard math step of saying, who are you trying to reach? And then realistically, what's it going to take to move the needle? We call it an inventory capture. And so it's just drilling down, not guessing, letting the data tell you, depending on the assignment, what do you need to spend to see success? And so that's really sort of how we do things.
And I want to second the knowing your audience, and as a part of that, knowing your brand. I'm going to give an example that many of you know. Courtney Nichols with Travel Bash. We laughed with her in Case Group when she said, I don't want to work with anyone that wants to travel domestically. She only wants to work with people that are going to be traveling international, because that's her brand, that's who she's working with. And so she's not wasting her time chasing things that are going to be going to Myrtle Beach or Orlando, because that's just never going to work out for her. I also had an interaction last year where someone asked, well, why does it seem like everyone local doesn't come out to do this? And I said, well, is that your audience? If 80% of your clients are tourist-based people coming in, your audience and what you're driving towards is not the local. You need to be driving that marketing, that branding towards those coming in. Now, not to say that you don't need to allocate some of those funds to those who are local, but if 80% is coming from one location, why would you spend 80% of your marketing budget on that other 20%?
I'm to give you one piece of immediately applicable advice to everyone. You cannot outspend a political party in election season. This is a great time to put more of your effort into search ads, into your social efforts, though political parties will outspend you in social too. And just be aware of that when you're making your budgets for the rest of the summer and fall, that you can't win that race. This is the time to look for the races you can win, and it is not going to be in display ads. AI has also been making a lot of waves about it can save you money. You don't have to hire another person because your AI can do it for you. And AI is really powerful, and that makes it really dangerous. I firmly believe that you should never use AI for something you can't do yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be able to do it quickly yourself. It doesn't mean you have to be the best person out there, but you need to know the rules because its brain isn't as good as yours. And you have to watch. But there are some tools that can help a lot. I'm a big fan of social media scheduling tools. Sprout's my favorite. They look at when your particular audience is online and post accordingly. Grammarly, if you're not an amazing writer, can make the stuff you write sound like it's gone through an editor. And it's a marvelous AI tool. I love the generative AI. I think it's very powerful for doing your research and stuff like that. I wouldn't ever use it to write your content because you can't stand out using an algorithm trained by everyone else. And so there's some stuff to watch, but it can help if you use it carefully.
Thank you. Yeah, that really hits home. It's something we talk a lot about in the classroom as well, is how you use it as a tool, like a chef in the kitchen, right? And that also you can't skip a level. You can't study a martial art and be immediately a black belt because you're using all this other tools. You have to go through the ranks to learn it. So right on top of that, then we can talk about metrics, because you guys are talking about what kind of metrics, using your analytics to drive where you're going to put your budget. And so maybe, Cara, you could speak to about what specific KPIs you would advise.
So I have spent a career in marketing data and have seen a lot of tools, used a lot of tools. I think there's a focus on metrics that are your secondary metrics, and people ignore the primary ones. How many customers do you have? Do you know how many customers you have? A lot of people don't. How many phone calls do you get? How many phone calls do you get that turn into customers? I love the larger platforms that measure a lot and put it together and make the pretty dashboards. I love my HubSpots and Marketos. But a spreadsheet is going to answer those questions very well. You should be measuring every phone call that comes in, every person that walks in, every contact you have with someone, and then try to add them all up. How many times do I have to do something to make it powerful? If they say, hey, I read this thing on your social media, maybe your social's powerful. Maybe your social's not doing anything. Those are metrics you need to gather from different places and combine. And I really think that for most smaller businesses especially, who can't afford the Marketos of the world, most of us can't, that just putting it all in a spreadsheet and seeing what numbers pop up is the most important first step. You have a lot of great metrics, and you have email opens is one of my favorite ones. You send an email and you want to see who opened it. But that number's a lie. It's a guess. It's a best estimate. Some email programs open everything and show it as read even when it's not. Some let you be stealthy and read it without anyone actually seeing that you've read it. So the open rate is the best guess. On those, I would say never look at the rate. Look at the change in rate. I changed something, did I go from 20% to 25%? Not what does 20% actually mean? And then apply those metrics to others. Okay, well, I've gotten 6 new customers this month, and I had these many email opens. For me, this many email opens equals a customer. And relate them to each other rather than taking them as truth from what you see, because there's a lot that goes into those metrics.
I, back in June, made a big change to the newsletter that comes out every week for the Chamber. And I started hyperlinking a lot more items. And that was a big change that I saw. I could go back and see the clicks went from 1% to, on average, 10% now, which compared to what the industry average is incredible. Same with opens, it went up as well. But then looking into it, it was like, okay, great. I have these opens. All of my clicks are happening in the top quarter of the page. I don't have a single click down at the bottom. So does that mean that people are opening and reading and getting the content, or are they just opening it to get rid of the notification? Because if you're like me, I can't stand a notification on my phone. So if you're missing an email from me, I'm sorry. It's because I opened it and didn't actually read the content. But looking at that as well is making sure that as I'm tracking some of that information, I'm still finding what are the pieces that worked. And the thing that worked the best was adding hyperlinks to places where people were going and looking at the picture or looking at the date and the time, not just where I said, click here. If you're one of the people that clicked here where it says click here, thank you. But for the rest of you that started clicking more when it was like, okay, great, this is an actual calendar invite, I can kind of look and see how that would impact. It had that direct change, and I think that's where you need to be focusing your time as you're looking at those metrics and looking at the changes, looking at the shifts, and then going back and being able to say, okay, this is what happened. Even looking at our website statistics, I ran those numbers about a month ago and found that last July we had 4,000 more clicks on our website that month than any other month. And there's nothing that went in a change that month. And so I could at least say, okay, great. This isn't a metric that's giving me information because nothing shifted, nothing changed. So I need to move on. If I went and just was like, heck yeah, we got 4,000 more clicks and I have no idea where it's going, that's not benefiting you at all. So yeah, looking at the changes is a lot more impactful than just looking at the metrics, because statistics are the best way to lie.
Yeah, I also have been teaching a class at Virginia Tech, and we got a section on analytics. And as an exercise, I asked my students, and doing the whole Mount Rushmore exercise, in which I asked them, I list like 6 or 7 different famous NBA All-Stars. Most of them they all know, like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, LeBron James, and you don't necessarily need to be an NBA fan, don't necessarily need to know basketball at all, so I'm trying to be inclusive there, to guess or to rank who you would list of the top 4 to be on the Mount Rushmore of the NBA. And in that, I list, amongst them, I list Robert Horry. Now, many of you don't know, but the reason why I add Robert Horry is, and nobody picked Robert Horry because they didn't know him, Robert Horry is a 7-time NBA champion. He's won 7 NBA championships for the different teams that he played for. But he never was an all-star, was never really got the name recognition. But if you looked at that statistically, somebody would look at 7-time champion and be like, he's got to be one of the best players there ever was. So when we look at metrics, like you're saying, metrics can be misleading, metrics can lie. So I do pay attention to the rates. That's where I want to focus on, because growing visitors is great. Like you pointed out, growing visitors could just be more people were looking for your product that week than the next. You didn't really do anything to impact it. So what was the ratio of change? And then what was the percentage that happened? So looking at the ratios of conversion rates, how many people visited versus how many people buy, that tells you how successful you are, right? It's like, how many free throws did I make? If I made 88% of them, I made a lot of them, and I only missed them rarely. So looking at the ratios is important. And then also what's the change? And if you're not familiar with, or if somebody is presenting you a metric and you don't know what it means, or when they're presenting a metric, you should be asking 2 questions. What does this mean? And what did you do to make this change happen? And that's an area where I see a lot of business owners are falling on the support that they're working on, or even the agencies they're working with, of just relying on the numbers that, well, numbers went up, they must be good. But if you're not asking, what did you do to make this happen, and they can't defend it, it may very well just be that it would be what I would refer to as a market seasonal anomaly, that it just went up and it's not sustainable. So what can you do that's going to be sustainable, and be the elements that from that point on is what you should be focusing on.
The only really other things I have to add, absolutely. There's a lot of incredible resources out there like GA4 that you should be maximizing. I can send to anyone who's interested. We have a small novella that we've made that's basically, here's all the reports that you can pull in Google Analytics. Some of them will be applicable and helpful, some won't. I can send that to anyone who'd like it. It's also, I think, important to know the limitations sometimes of certain platforms. The main thing I want to say as far as metrics, I think that there can be an incredible amount of accountability when it comes to a digital partner. If you're trusting a nerd like me with a big bulk of your money, you really want to have that accountability. You want to have if you're using someone for your digital marketing and they are not regularly sitting down with you and showing you exactly, by platform, by strategy, what is causing people to not just visit your site and getting very down specific based on the true goals that you wanted to accomplish with this campaign. How many people are actually filling out that contact form? How many people are actually clicking to call? How many people are actually completing an application? The metrics that matter that way. And, depending on the goal of the campaign, there are platforms that have things like on-site visit tracking, so that if you are retail or if you're brick and mortar, that those are the kinds of things you need to be tracking if that's what truly matters to you. Because with how awesome and how never-ending the different metrics can be, I'll never forget a story. I'm going to tell a very short story about a client that I lost. That's probably a weird thing to do here. But I'll never forget, I had an incredibly impressive monthly digital report with a click-through rate that was far above the national and industry average, and had several Google Analytics reports that were showing increases, on his website and everything. So I was pretty pumped about this meeting. I sat down. This dude was straight out of Deliverance. He had a dip cup sitting next to him, I'm pretty sure. And he looked deeply unamused as I started going through this stuff, and he stopped me pretty early. He said, "That's all well and good, son, but the door ain't swinging and the register ain't ringing." I was pretty petrified when I pulled out the next pie chart, and we cut it pretty short after that. So I do think with how helpful metrics are, it is always important to never get lost so completely in that, to not just look down at the very basics of, did this increase my customer base and my revenue?
That's excellent. One thing we didn't necessarily say, though, is engagement. And in the social class, we talk a lot about engagement, because it's very misleading when you have reach and you have impressions and you have views. But when you have that engagement, that's something that you want to pay attention to in social. And so a question I'd like to put before all of you is, what type of content do you feel drives better engagement? And that's Baumann. You can go ahead and start with that one.
This is another situation where it's like, it depends on your audience. But for me and what I've seen at the Chamber, a lot of what we have that's got the most engagement is when it's got people in it. It's got someone that they can directly talk to. It gives them an actual reason to engage, not just, hey, here's information. It's here's a shout out to this person. Our ambassador highlights, for example, every time we do that, we've always got people that are commenting and thanking people and giving the shout out and the love. And it's because there's that direct interaction. We do a lot that it's tag your business. Last year we did that. I can't specifically remember the occasion, but it was specifically women-owned businesses. And I said, hey, let's tag the businesses that you have that are women-owned that you want to give a shout out to. I think when engagement comes to it, it's just a matter of making sure that that's there, and that is the purpose of that post. Not every post has the purpose of engagement, because if every one of you commented on every single post we put out there, my phone would never stop and I would never forgive you.
I would say your goal is generally you want loyal customers and you want happy customers, right? Customers and people in general are really into control these days. They want to know what they're getting, and they want to know it very quickly. Which means it's time to end subject lines that say, open for an incredible deal, to say 20% off hardcover books. There's a higher chance they're going to open it and be happy that they opened it. And that happiness is why the clickbait is starting to fail. It also means that you want really scannable content. If you have a blog, people shouldn't have to read the blog to know what it's about. People should be able to see the title, the subheads, and know what it's about. If they have to read it, you've lost them. They're not going to do that. They want to know that it's worth their time to read it. So make sure you tell them that it's worth their time to read it. It also means all of us who like to write these compelling essays that end with a big finish, this is not our time. First sentence, maybe second sentence needs to tell you why you're reading this if you started reading it, or they won't finish. And making it very easy to tell what you're getting is critical.
I think really the two main points I'd want to bring up, one is from a platform perspective, because there's a lot of different ways that you can push out content, whether that's with eBlast, whether that's with a blog, with a YouTube channel, a podcast, you name it. It's infinite and growing daily. Again, it's that case, if it's not a one-size-fits-all, look at where your audience is. So there are reports that you can pull that show, okay, well, if my demographic are people in these job titles or these areas of responsibility at a company, what kind of content do they spend most of the time doing? If you see that the answer is blogs, then that's where you need to prioritize. You don't fall into the thing where because your nephew said podcasts are cool, that you start a podcast. Like I've seen, there's been a lot of time I can't get back from that. So one would be by platform, again, let the data guide you. But the other thing I'd say is, and I really, you said it too, but I'll say it in a slightly more long-winded manner. We have some B2B companies here, and that's amazing. We work with a lot of B2B. I think, not to pick on y'all specifically, but I'm going to pick on you. You're especially guilty sometimes, I think we all are, of being very inside baseball. So that if you're going to write a blog, I was pretty excited when we did get this new AI tool that helped us optimize better for conversions. So I'm writing a blog that I think sounds pretty sexy. About like, well, your conversion optimization is about to go next level, guys. And someone read it and was like, stop right now. No one knows what that means. You have to communicate that into what is of value to your customer, right? It's the oldest, simplest trick in the book of, if you have a new HVAC technology, don't just spit out that term, even if that may be exciting to you. It's, this new technology will save you 20% in your monthly, heating bill or whatever the case may be. So I would just say anything you do, regardless of the platform, make sure that it's communicating immediate, real value, not just to you. Never mistake your value as the business owner to your customer's value. Make sure to always translate it to
that. It seems, again, kind of contradictory in the world that we live in to be talking about social media and to be making the phrase that your social media, it ain't about you, right? In your business, it needs to be about how you are providing the service to your customers. And I see this every day. So many businesses, I have to use the verb fail because I just haven't found a more positive one to use, but are failing in their social media because they're putting out stuff that is clearly just, look how great we are in what we do. And they don't try to address matters that are, this is why this is important to your customer, right? Most of my background is in hospitality. I spent the last 15 years in supporting hotels. And I see so many hotels and so many restaurants putting out all these beautiful social media posts about, look at my beautiful hotel, right? But most of the people who are following your hotel have already stayed in your hotel and they know how pretty it is. They want to know, why should I come back to Blacksburg? What's happening next month that's going to get me to come back? What is happening in the area? What is going on? What is some travel tips that I need to know for when I'm going on my next trip? If you make it about, I'm an expert and an authority in the topic of whatever it is you do, and you focus on, I want to inform my customers and make it so their life is better, then you will find that their engagement will improve because they'll be like, that's a great tip. Or, hey, don't forget to come down for this festival. Oh, I went down to the festival, great, was last year. You'll see people engaging because you remind them of something or you reinforce something. But if you post up and saying, we've got this beautiful ballroom, great for weddings, a lot of people will be like, yeah, whatever. And they'll just keep sliding past. So what are you doing to make your content meaningful to your customer? And then if we're talking about engaging, you're actually got to encourage conversation. So a lot of people don't even say, what was your favorite thing to do in September in Blacksburg? Or what's your favorite HVAC system? Or what questions do you have on how we can provide a better service for you. Ask, and then give that content back. So a lot of social media engagement is blasting, and it really should be engaging, which is two-way. What are you telling us? What is every customer coming in the door saying they have a problem with, and what am I putting out there so the world knows that we addressed that problem?
Thank you. You know, it made me think of a podcast I was listening to this past week. And they made a really beautiful analogy about like your ideal customer profile that you're working on. And that your ideal customer profile, they are the hero. You are not the hero, you're the one providing them with the tool. So he gave the example of Thor in the world of Marvel, and that the customer is Thor, and you're providing them with the hammer, which I just thought was a really powerful analogy, kind of piggyback off what you're saying, that they're the hero, it's their journey, and your job is to provide them with the tool that's going to help them complete their hero's journey. So we're kind of coming towards the end, but there is one question I really wanted to touch on before we leave, because it involves SEO, and this is a big topic on everyone's mind. So with the increasing influence of AI, especially in search algorithms, how should businesses adapt their SEO strategies to stay relevant, and what changes is it good for us to be aware of?
So I gave a presentation to my Toastmasters group last week called SEO in the Age of AI. So I can talk about this at length, but I will spare you. Come to Toastmasters if you want more. I think that if you learned SEO 2 years ago, it has entirely changed. I think if you learned SEO 1 year ago, it has 50% changed. And basically, you've got to learn the new rules. For a long time, it changed. It was really weekly, I think, that when they first rolled out some of these big updates. Every week was something different. Now it's more on every month or two, something major changes. But that's still pretty fast for most of us. The main thing that matters to SEO now, which has in some ways changed from before, is that it's all about content, but about good content. Search engines are out there to help people find answers. That's all they care about, because that's where their ad money comes from, is if they help people find answers. People spend more time on them and they get more ad money. But that's good for you. It means they're trying to direct you to the right web pages, which means your web content has to be optimized for both robots and humans to get the answers they need. And it needs to be an answer that's not the same answer everyone else is giving, or why would they direct them to your site and not the other person's? So you want to have an opinion or an answer that's a little bit different or tailored to a particular niche, something that's different from what other people are saying. And again, to the scannability, robots like things that are easily scannable, just like humans do now. So the good news is that you can write for robots and humans at the same time. That would be my main piece of advice, I think.
Good. I would actually take a slightly different approach, in which I would say one of the areas that I see a lot of businesses definitely need to focus on before they start looking at, jumping into AI or even thinking if that's right for them, is I see a lot of businesses that haven't even nailed the basics of SEO, right? And some of that may be that, maybe it's changed or whatever, but, a lot of while the algorithms and things that are how things are getting evaluated has changed, at their core, they're all still pretty much the same, right? So I see a lot of sites that are not keeping up on their technical maintenance, right? So their pages are slowing down, their site's slowing down, and therefore and most businesses don't even realize that if you don't have a good mobile page speed, not your desktop, your mobile site needs to be, have a great speed. That's what gets ranked. Right, so but as business owners, I'm looking at my desktop website all day because that's how I'm looking at my desk. But your customers are finding you on mobile, so that's why Google is evaluating your mobile site. So look at how that's performing. Look at your content. I see a lot of why aren't I showing up for local search, but you're not even using local terms in your meta descriptions or your content descriptions. So before you look at AI or whatever the latest, greatest thing is work with your provider to make sure, do we have these basics really nailed down? Do we have the ABCs mastered before we look to take on the next best thing? Because again, if you are concerned about, some of the economic conditions in the future, the cream is going to rise to the top. And a lot of people are going to realize that those that were just getting by are going to be unearthed, and those who really know what they're talking about are going to show up. So those who master the basics are going to be the ones who are going to come out ahead, and then it's so much easier to implement the next best thing before jumping into the other one. Because if you're just building on a poor foundation, for all my home folks out there, you know that that's a terrible idea. So get that foundation down first.
Perfect. So I'm going to kind of try to marry both together because I think you're both right and coming at it from two different perspectives, because I think what AI has gotten a lot better at doing and will continue to get better at doing is acting more human, which is a very creepy thing to say. And so basically what the AI models are doing now is they're being instructed to look for the same things that humans look for. So, time for years and years and years, the thing that I kept championing was, what users trust more than anything else that you can give them is testimonials and reviews from your current happy customers. Let those happy customers be your brand ambassadors. Well, guess what? One of the main things that AI is looking for from an SEO perspective right now is looking at reviews. Not just Google reviews, though those are crucial, but also just reviews on your website, reviews on Yelp and other third-party listing sites. So in a lot of ways, I think that the way that we're going to want to make sure that our SEO is AI geared is also going to be the same way that we make sure that, when we're looking at our landing pages, absolutely, bots are crawling and saying, is this page helpful? So one of the main things it's going to look for is actually a list of frequently asked questions or bullet points that they deem describe or answer commonly asked questions of, well, does your service do this? Or what makes your service different than this other service? And so the same way that a customer will want to know those things, that's sort of the marching orders that AI has been given too. So you really need to kind of still attack those basics. One thing I will warn is, even though, and I think we've kind of said an iteration of this earlier, is AI is a time saver, right? It does not replace your brand voice. There's a really creepy thing that Meta just put out that said, like, well, our AI is getting better at learning your brand voice, or it was something like, our AI is going to help you learn what your real voice is. And it's like, I think I know what my real voice is, Mark, back off. Too often you will see SEO tools that just say, like, well, we're just going to go in and inject keywords into your site. We're just going to create content, generate blog posts that are just going to have tons of keywords in it that are important for you, and that's going to help your SEO. What it's going to actually look like is like the manuscript in The Shining, where it's just the same word over and over again. It's going to scare people, and it's really not going to help your SEO. So I think that you can use AI tools to create content to get you started on helping your SEO, but you need to make sure to have that human element to make sure that that translates first and foremost into a user experience.
Can I add that? Sorry, I just wanted to add on that real quick. I'm seeing a lot of advertisements for people who are like, well, link building is really important, so we've got this great link building platform, or you're describing other AI tools. And what I see for when people are running those ads is they're being done by companies who don't know the history of the search algorithm changes. And spamming links was actually, I think it was Penguin, which was one of the Google search algorithms 15 years ago, that Google said, that's a terrible thing to do and we're going to penalize you for doing it. So people are now going back to trying to drive the same mistakes that you are getting penalized for and that Google is already trying to fix for it. So if you're looking at these products, if you're not sure if it's right for you, again, talk to somebody to be like, is this something I should look at? Because links and keyword-packed discussions are things that will penalize you, and you'll add it and you'll actually drive down.
And I'm going to go completely in the opposite side and say, while yes, SEO is important, it's never not going to be important. It does come back to looking at your business and where you're getting return. In this season, you could spend all the money in the world to get you to #1 on the search. But if you're #1 on the search and you're not getting the sales from it, it's not worth being #1 on the search. Take a look at what your company is doing and take a look at where you're reaching. Now, I'm going to speak mostly to those local, because if you're trying to do something that is nationwide, SEO is a lot more important. Even statewide, countywide, it's a lot more important than when you're looking at something that's just going to be local. You're not a business that's being searched for all the time. That's where you get into things that's more important to look at those local reach the things that are word of mouth, those drivers, and just make sure you go back to that budget. You're making sure that you're spending your time wisely. I also, just to wrap that up on a slightly different piece, you mentioned the podcast, you mentioned one as well. I'm a big believer in podcasts, but just like any of these other tools, any of these other things we've said, if you're not approaching it fully from a perspective of, I have something to say, I have something worthwhile, and I have a strategy that is going to be consistent, it's never going to work. I think making a podcast is really easy. That doesn't mean it's good. And in a world where someone can easily flip to a million different things that are there, I hate to say it, someone's had your idea before. They're going to, if it's not consistent and good, because they've got another choice. So really in SEO, in all of this, yes, you can go ahead, you can be making some of those steps, and that's fine. There's never a fully right answer. Sometimes it's a right now answer. But make sure you're utilizing some of the connections you have as well, like the experts we have here, the other members that we have at the Chamber that can help you with your marketing and your branding, because they're the ones that have the time to do those things. You may not, and that's perfectly fine, saying, this isn't the time for me to do it. I'm going to let someone else that knows what they're doing handle it for me.
Thank you. And I want to just echo one more item there is that next season there's going to be a whole bunch of lunch and learns that are going to be diving into some of these particular topics. So if there was a particular question that you have interest in for your company, you can register for those sessions that are upcoming.
We'll be announcing and saying if you're meeting with Marissa right now for IFS, she has the full list and you'll get all of that information there. But then the website will be updated with all of next year's content the week after annual dinner. I'm not doing it before then because, God, we got a lot to do.
Okay. And so we need to wrap up. We can still have questions maybe afterwards, but we need to, for sake of time, because you all need a prompt exit here. I just want to thank all the panelists today for sharing their expertise and their insights.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody as well for coming. That's been a great discussion. It's really interesting. So thank you to our panel, our moderator, to our sponsor, Lewis Gale Montgomery. Thank you to Warm Hearth for our breakfast. And as a token of our appreciation, the Chamber would like to present these mug gift sets made by Orange Bandana, one of our small business members. And before we close, I want to recognize our nonprofit organization that's highlighted this morning as part of the Chamber Give Back program. That's Volunteer Montgomery, and I'd like to ask Fallon from Volunteer Montgomery to come and tell us about the organization.
So hello everybody. As he said, I am Fallon with Volunteer Montgomery, and we're just going to share a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how you can join us. So a little bit about our history. Volunteer Montgomery was founded or established in April of 2023. Prior to that, the county had a thriving volunteer program dating back to 1969, which really helped pave the way for us today. And so our mission is to serve, to strengthen our community by empowering volunteers to utilize their time and skills. So this is truly a thriving time for Volunteer Montgomery. We have a growing membership of over 300 volunteers with us today, and every day we gain more. And so we currently, or always, we welcome volunteers of all ages. Our youngest is currently 4, with our eldest being 98. So it's a very diverse range of volunteer force that we have as well. And in addition to that, we have over 70 partner organizations, and these include organizations such as Lewis Gale, Habitat for Humanity, the Humane Society, American Red Cross, and many more. And some of our volunteer programs that we host ourselves are our Supplies for Seniors, where we make and deliver tote bags full of hygiene products to hundreds of homebound seniors in the area. Our Valentine's for Vets, Operation Paperback, and our upcoming Patriot Day baskets, where we deliver baskets full of baked goodies to all of our first responders in the area. And here are just a few photos to highlight some of our events and programs. You can see our Supplies for Seniors bagging, our peanut butter drive that we participated in, some more supply drives, Coal Miners Park, a little beautification project we did with a sorority at Virginia Tech, and our Valentine's for Vets. And then if you're interested in joining us, this QR code will take you to our volunteer application page. And if you're also interested in sponsorship or other ways you can get involved with us, that far right QR code will take you to a flyer about how you can learn more about our sponsorship. And then if you just want to learn more, or you have questions, you just want to connect with us, right below, if you can see, is our phone number and our email address. And I just want to thank everyone for having us here today, and I look forward to networking with you all here shortly.
I want to just briefly say thank you to Volunteer Montgomery. They are partners with us at the Chamber, and so we will have some help at the golf tournament for that. I'm also involved with Downtown Christiansburg Incorporated, and they've been great to us, helping get the word out about volunteer needs for the Rockin' Food Truck Rodeo. I'm going to ask both of those things. Rockin' Food Truck Rodeo is on September 14th. Our Chamber Golf Tournament is on September 16th. We do still need volunteers for both. So please contact us or Volunteer Montgomery if you would like to volunteer for either of those. Please, 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 please.
We have the coolest topics for Exit Issues, and our next one, October 3rd, is on catching cyber criminals. So I hope you'll all join us for that. And thank you all for coming.